you. I appreciate it.
You. Good morning, everybody.
Yes, this is my camp attire. You should see what I normally wear. Kind of a different venue for me. I normally speak in corporations, but the concept of this day to not only talk about compassion fatigue, but to actually engage in exercises that help to restore you and to refuel you, I'm all for it. I work with a lot of nonprofit organizations, from health and human service entities to arts and culture organizations, and I really do have a deep appreciation for the work that you do. On a good day, it's hard. There's always more need than you have the resources and the capacity to utilize. But I gotta tell you, 2025, I mean, come on. Next level. Are you feeling me? I mean, this has been a hard year.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, actually, well, just shout out some of the organizations that you all are from.
House of Peace.
House of Peace, thank you. St. Anne Center. Project Concern. So senior care, health and human services, child care. I know that you're dealing with changing regulations, a difficult political environment, changing laws, executive orders. Some of your services have been defunded. Raising money in this environment is really, really hard, but the need for what you do could not be more important. And so talk about trying to do more with less. It's like insane. Um, so when Julia invited me and was telling me about the audience, all of you, and the concept for today, I was like totally on board. Didn't have to ask me twice. And super excited. Like I knew exactly what I was going to talk about. I was going to acknowledge the toll that compassion fatigue takes on you, but I was definitely going to be positive, right? Because you have a great day ahead of you. So I wanted to make sure that, you left my keynote feeling inspired. And I had everything planned of what I was going to talk about until yesterday. And I'm not kidding you. Yesterday really threw me off my game. Something happened yesterday, and honestly, I just thought, who am I kidding? Things are actually kind of bad. I'm not actually sure that they're getting better. And I'm not one of those speakers where I do well if I don't really mean what I'm saying, but I was not feeling positive at all. I really started to, genuinely believe that we have so normalized burnout and fatigue, there is no crawling back. And so I really started to panic because I knew I had to come and face all of you. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to say that's going to be credible. And this was actually just 17 hours ago. So I said, I'll put on my yellow jacket. That'll help. But I'll sort of take you on the journey of how I'm actually able to stand here in front of you. And I think be authentic, but also be genuinely hopeful. So I'm going to take you back on this journey that culminated into yesterday. So first of all, I want to just acknowledge that, my day job is I'm a leadership and workplace culture consultant. And I will tell you the number one topic that I am asked to speak about, advise on, and consult on this year is burnout. Hands down, the number one topic. And I work across all industries. So it is universal, burnout in the workplace. I work primarily in financial services, banks and credit unions. I also work in a lot of professional services, law firms, accounting firms, and even manufacturing, and it's the same thing. Now, to be fair, those of you who have chosen care-centric professions actually are feeling more burnout than the average, right? So you can sort of see, I've been doing more work in senior care, retirement communities, health care, because the burnout is really quite acute. So the underlying factors, while I know in your profession, compassion fatigue is a big one, and I actually had to get the formal definition. So emotional burnout and reduced capacity to empathize that develops after prolonged exposure to other suffering and the demand of caring work. Is y'all are feeling that? But I also know that burnout isn't isolated to just one underlying factor. Most people I talk to are experiencing all of this. And even individuals who are not in direct sort of care centric professions are still feeling compassion fatigue, especially managers. Middle managers are the highest rate of burnout across different roles because, in some regards, you are caring for your team. And it is hard. It is really hard to be present and empathize with others when you're feeling depleted yourself. So I research burnout, the causes of burnout. I talk about them. I get to the underlying factors and help organizations get to better. And this is just my short list of the specific root causes of burnout that I've been asked to address this year alone. So I left corporate to start my own consulting practice 6 years ago. And I was talking about burnout then, but it was just sort of global burnout. Just like burnout was just the topic. But now I feel like, I guess maybe it's a good thing that we're talking about it so much that we're actually getting smarter at the underlying factors. I do worry, though, that between now and the end of the year, I could fill this page up with more underlying factors. Um, Capacity fatigue is just what I call work overload. There's too much work, not enough time, extremely high work demands and expectations. Change fatigue. With all the change, especially as managers, how do you translate that? How do you keep up with the trends and translate it and bring others along with change? Um, Interestingly enough, where do I have it on here? Oh, actually, I can add another one. I'm calling it AI burnout. Right? So it's part change. Yeah, you're feeling it, right? It's part change. And I think our expectations is technology is going to solve so much. It's going to free us up from work. Maybe, I hope. But in the meantime, it's one more thing to adapt to. And for some professions, childcare, healthcare, senior care, it's actually taking you away from the work that you want to do. You're typing stuff in more than you are with your personal interactions. That's leading to a fatigue, and if prolonged, that all ladders up to burnout. When I look at this slide, I think of, there's that saying, and I don't know how true it is, but like Eskimos have 200 words for snow because when you're immersed in something, you get so granular with your understanding of it. I really hope that we don't come to the point that Americans have 200 words for fatigue because we're so immersed in it. We get so granular with the root causes of fatigue. Um, so um, that is the other thing that I just sort of want to say about the work that I do around burnout is I do think we're at a point now of acknowledging it's not a personal problem. It really is a system problem, which is a good thing. And the cost of burnout is really hitting organizations, and it is costly. Um, Turnover, avoidable turnover, when people don't feel that their human needs of what we need to thrive as humans are being met, sometimes we choose to leave. I think in this economy, we're actually seeing more rise in the cost of absenteeism. You might have heard that we're in a job hugging environment. People don't feel safe leaving their jobs necessarily in this economy. So they're staying in their roles. They're literally not showing up. More sick days. I have clients who are very alarmed at the expense that they're paying to service short-term disability claims due to stress, anxiety, and burnout. In manufacturing and in senior care, ghosting is a problem. You've hired someone and they don't show up. Burnout can be a factor of that because guess what? Some people have multiple jobs. They're juggling so much. One of the jobs is just going to have to go at some point. So we see turnover, we see absenteeism. Okay, yeah, disengagement, of course, but also incivility. So many claims around toxic work behaviors, even violence at work. Um, how do you collaborate under these environments that leads to better innovation and decision making? That has a cost to it as well. So this is sort of the landscape that I've been immersed in, uh, really heavily, deeply since the beginning of the year. Um, but when you look at these numbers on a macro level, you know what I mean? I put my like strategy hat on. It's really alarming, but you're sort of avoid from like the real human toll because I'm trying to solve organizational problems, systems problems. So I sort of put my hat on from that standpoint. I stay very like analytical and strategic. Because of the prevalence of burnout and compassion fatigue, especially in healthcare, I've been doing a lot more work with hospitals. So, to kind of bring myself up to speed, I went to a national healthcare conference. It was Sunday, Monday, and yesterday. I just flew in last night. And it was bringing all of your C suite folks in hospitals, so people who represent the doctors, nurses, lab techs, clinical staff, and administrators to talk everything about what's going on in that particular industry, the challenges, strategies, and solutions. Two topics dominated the conversations. Can you guess which two? Burnout, yes. Can you guess what the second one was? That was related to burnout as a root cause of burnout. AI was the other one, right? What's AI going to do in our workplace? And really often the conversations intersected. So, AI again as a root cause of burnout or not enabling, not helping burnout, but adding to it. But definitely a lot of talk around mental health, compassion fatigue. And there was a lot of good discussion around strategies that people are trying. Is it really working yet? Not quite yet. And so again, I'm appreciating more of the intellectual dialogue on all of this until the very last day. Last day, last speaker, the CEO, bless you, of a large healthcare system on the East Coast said, "Look, here's the deal. This is the human toll it's taking." He had an open town hall with all of the staff in the hospital, so doctors, nurses, lab tech, clinicians, administrators, to acknowledge not just the really challenging external environment, insurance, technology, laws, regulations, staffing shortages, but the emotional toll that it's taking on people. And he looked at all of his staff. There was probably about 200, 300 people. And he said, given everything that's going on, given the rate of burnout, how many of you would encourage your children to choose healthcare as a profession? And he said, only a few people out of hundreds actually raise their hands. And you could see just sort of it was really hard to watch him relay this. And it really hit me. This is the human toll of burnout. It has gotten so bad. People who have chosen um, to provide care, one of the most critical roles, are now maybe quietly regretting that they got into it themselves, but not actually even encouraging a family member to follow their footsteps. How horrible is that? We're dissuading our best and our brightest to go into the most critical professions. Have we lost an entire generation because of where we are? You can see where I went into like a doom spiral. And it really hit me hard because my dad's a physician, long since retired, and my mom's a teacher, elementary school teacher, long since retired. But I was like, this is really bad. So the conference was over. I went back to the room and I had enough time to like pack my bags before heading to the airport. But I was like, I gotta check in with my parents because do they feel this way? You know what I mean? Like two care centric roles. What are they thinking about all this? So Okay, Angela, do they look familiar to you? Those are my mom and dad. They're ancient. So my dad turned 90, ancient but healthy. My dad turned 90 in April, and my mom will be 89 on Friday. So they've been out of the workforce for a really long time. So I really wanted to like bring them up to speed. Dad, I'm at this healthcare conference. No one wants to go in healthcare anymore. It sucks that bad. Can you believe it? Like, what do you think? Like, really? This is the worst it's ever been. And I paused and I was like, right. And he was like, oh, hell no. He goes, uh-uh. He goes, oh, no. He's like, things are bad. Oh, they've been worse. No, 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 no. You've been out of the workforce far too long. Let me tell you what's going on. No, things have been worse. And so my mom got on the phone. She's like, oh, I want in on this conversation. And so she started telling me about her dad. Her dad worked in a factory in Indiana for this company called Studebaker. Has anybody ever heard of Oh, you have? You've heard of Studebaker? Like those cars, right? They don't exist anymore. And she was telling me, like, oh, the stuff he would talk about when he got home, like the abuse at work and like unsafe conditions. And my dad was telling me his dad was a social worker and often got involved in the community, like organizing around labor rights that were just like non existent. So he was like, look, yeah, things are bad, but they've been worse and they are getting better. You can't see it because you only know sort of your slice of reality. He goes, if I were you, if you're really concerned about facing these people tomorrow, just do a little bit of research. Just educate yourself on the history of safety and worker rights in America and the evolution. And it'll help you put today in more of a long-term perspective. And that's the value of wisdom that comes. You have that long-term view. I'm sort of picking up on all of this, sort of immersed in a culture of burnout. So I had a little bit of time, so I chat GPT to give me a high level overview of the evolution of workplace. And here's what I learned. And it was actually super helpful to put things in context. So I'm actually going to read from my notes because I'm not a historian. And but I did learn some things that were super helpful. So I'm sharing them with you to the extent that it helps you put where we are today in a little bit of context. So I'm going to pick up this story in the early 1900s. They call this the industrial age, and it was marked by just a heavy emphasis on production. The first emphasis on mass production and using machinery and sort of moving work from more of an agrarian work into factories. During this era, safety was not a priority at all. Um, Children as young as 5 worked 12-hour days. So it culminated into disaster. 1911, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory caught on fire in New York City. It killed 146 young immigrant women who were literally locked inside the building. Locked in the building so they couldn't leave. Just keep working. Locked in the building, burned in the fire. Today, this is still one of the biggest and most devastating examples of neglect around safety at work. So this led to a lot of reform and pushback, which fueled the rise of the labor movement and landmark worker protections, which includes child labor laws that were passed in 1916. Later, the Fair Labor Standards Act was passed in 1936, and this helped end widespread child labor and establish the 40-hour work week, minimum wage, and overtime pay. 30 years later, the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970 created OSHA, formally making physical safety on the job a federally protected right. So, really, since the 1970s, I think um, physical safety at work is just an expectation, right? I don't think I really appreciated that without taking a look back, like, oh my God, there were times when it wasn't. I mean, it's so much of an expectation. We have so many rights. As a quick example, I had a ear infection recently. This is why I'm not wearing earrings, due to wearing cheap earrings. And I had to go to the urgent care. And the first question they asked me was like, "Is this a work related injury?" I was like, "No." Weird question, but that is how embedded in workers' rights around safety has become. Right? You just sort of take it for granted. But since the 1970s, I'd like to say that we've been really embarking on a new frontier because we have made work so physically safe. Really, now the next wave is around our psychological safety and our emotional sustainability. And it has not been a smooth glide path, nor has it been to get to physical safety and normalize physical safety. But it just helped to appreciate how far we've come, how bad things were, how far we've come, so that I have maybe a little bit more appreciation, not necessarily patience, but appreciation for where we're going and how more, that we can get there. Okay, so I'm going to sort of pick up the story again, like maybe around the 1980s. I'm calling it the always on era. So, really fueled by technology, hustle at work really became the badge of honor. Um, so I'll just sort of give some tangible examples from my own work experience. So I entered the workforce like for real, like my real job as an early career professional, let's just say the late 90s after graduate school. And I remember at that time, um, everyone had like a mainframe computer at their desk. So, like, when your work was done, you go home. You're not lugging the mainframe computer, it's like bolted to your desk. So, what are you going to do? You're not doing that much work at home, right? Fast forward a couple more years, and they gave us this. It was like a little bingo card where if we had a home computer, if you could use that to dial in to just do simple stuff like check emails, stay on top of emails. But, it wasn't the expectation because not everybody got one of those cards. Not everybody even had the internet or a home computer, but it sort of enabled a little bit more work at home. And then fast forward, then, okay, they get rid of the mainframes and everybody has a laptop, but they're locked to the desk. So you could take your laptop home if you wanted to, if you were one of those go-getters, but you had to talk to security and get permission. So there are still barriers. Then fast forward, it was like, now it's the requirement you take it home. Nothing's locked. It's not safe to leave your laptop at home. I mean, in work, it could get stolen, so take it home. Well, if we're taking it home, chances are I'm going to fire it up. I'm going to check in. I'm going to get on top of things so I don't feel so underwater when I return to work the next day. Well, then, smartphones. Then they got rid of our desk phones. Everything now is on our smartphones. So it completely blurred the line between my personal life and my work life. And those smartphones are smart. You can do everything that you do on a laptop on your smartphone. And I definitely saw, me and my husband were reflecting on this, how our work patterns adjusted accordingly. There is not a day when I'm not checking in for work after dinner. Even if I physically leave an office and I go home, yes, I'll do my personal stuff. I guarantee you I am checking in before I go to bed. I guarantee you I am working on the weekends. Um, and this is just the expectation. I know everybody else's as well. And my husband's kind of next level on this. And so he's now part of a standing Sunday night meeting for work to prepare for a Monday. Sunday is now the new Monday. I know, I know, I know. Next level, extra. I know. But this is the hustle culture. And look at how much we have normalized look at how much we have normalized just from when I actually entered the workforce myself. Okay, so now COVID did start to disrupt this. It really did, right? Because of COVID, we started to think a little bit differently. Again, our physical health and well being was first and foremost. And we also started to notice our emotional well being as well at work was a concern. People were afraid. Leaders needed to be more vulnerable and honest. They don't have answers, they're afraid as well. It started to usher in more conversations around mental health at work that might have been starting to percolate, but it sort of gave it a nice big push. Um, Also, we realized we can be flexible. We can actually work at home and have options for how people work. After the murder of George Floyd, when more organizations were leaning into inclusion and belonging, that helped because resilience is recognized as a dimension of diversity. Different people need different things to be resilient. How do we tease that out? How do we ask about that? And how do we be flexible in our approach to meet that? That didn't exist before COVID. A lot helped us get to better from a well being standpoint. Um, and thank you, Gen Z. If there are any of you in the audience, thank you. Keep activating. You're welcome. Thank you. Keep advocating. Keep advocating. Gen Z has very different expectations of what work is. They're better at setting healthy boundaries, and it's part of just sort of how they grew up. Again, normalized behavior. I've never seen so much talk about stress and anxiety at school than when my kids were in middle school. Even language around bullying at work. What? Never heard of that. I'm Gen X. But, and we never had bullying on the playground at school. That was Tuesday. And so the fact that they're educating about that, they bring that language and then they bring that language to work. And it actually does help. Um, so I think seeing that historical look did help to, I guess, talk me off the ledge a little bit yesterday, um, where I could see, okay, we have not fully embraced well-being at work, but I like to say we're well becoming. We are well becoming. We're better. We're better than when we were locking people into the factory. Um, we still have some ways to go. So, what does that look like? How do we get to better? One I think encouraging thing is the level of investment over the past, even just the past 5 years of wellness and well-being at work. Huge, huge. Most companies do have employee assistance programs, EAPs. Many companies now have wellness professionals hired. You might have a wellness coordinator or maybe even a chief wellness officer. Teams around this, initiatives, programs, resources. We have the investment. We're talking about it, we're learning about it, we're normalizing the language, and we're investing. All the right building blocks. The question, though, is even though investment in wellness continues to grow every year, so does burnout. We haven't we haven't quite, rounded the corner around that yet. And so my thinking is, so then why? Why is that? And I do think sort of the last thing that we really need to tackle together to get to better is just appreciating we've been in this hustle culture for so long. We have normalized overachieving, overworking. To get ahead, you do more. You care more. You show up more. And that's just a hard habit to break. We have to start normalizing rest and recovery as essential for work, as opposed to it's extracurricular or it's the reward of after having worked really hard. So to me, it really comes down to permission. I think we have a permission gap. You know, we still prioritize in subtle ways the hustle, the extra work, going the extra mile, doing more. And we deprioritize investing in rest and recovery. Um, it's hard for us to do it without guilt. By show of hands, how many of you, if you're being honest, you have maybe felt guilty investing in your own rest and recovery when you felt like you should be doing more, working more, caring for more? Yeah, we're just not there yet. Um, I'm not there yet. I know what I need to be my best. I love to be in nature, and just even stepping outside sometimes is what I need. But often I'll be like, I'll take that walk after I finish this, as opposed to I'm going to take that walk. So the work I'm engaging in, I'm going to be more present, more creative, better, have more energy. We're not quite there yet. So here's some examples of, even though we talk about the importance of wellness and well-being and recovery, in subtle ways, our behaviors and our norms have not collectively caught up. So we've just normalized hard work for decades. It's just very difficult for us to normalize recovery. There's some things that we do that we don't even know that we're doing. So workload heroics, for example. How many of you, oh my God, I do this all the time. You meet someone for the first time. Oh my God, Jill, how are you? Whoa, busy. I mean, who's going to not say that? Because then it's like, you're not busy, weird. You know what I mean? What's wrong with you? That's my default. Oh my gosh, so busy, so busy. Oh my God, so busy. Um, right? So, praising late night emails. Wow, you must have really been working hard in a positive, congratulatory way. Um, Checking in from vacations. I'm on vacation. Well, that's okay. I'll just check in. Because, you feel like I'm going to get points, or people are going to see I'm so dedicated. We don't speak this, but it's our actions that is just the hangover. I like that. I'm going to turn that into a t-shirt. The hustle culture hangover. I like that. Yes, I'm onto something here. Okay, another example. I love this. Boundary shaming, right? When somebody goes on vacation, you're going on vacation, that must be nice. I remember I had a boss say to me when I announced I was going to take some PTO, didn't you just come back from vacation? It was a year ago. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like those subtle things. So it lodges in you. You don't feel, you feel like you're going to like invest in your recovery, like on the sly, not out in the open. Eyes rolling if people leave on time. I'm guilty of that. I am guilty of that. Before becoming self-employed, I worked at Northwestern Mutual, and there are people who like their job is done. They left at 4, and I'd be like, "Are you kidding me?" Sometimes people would during lunch would be reading novels. I'd be the person looking at them like, "Oh, you don't have a real job." I mean, right? It's ingrained. Again, I'm Gen X, right? This is what I was brought up in. Meetings scheduled over lunch. How common is that? When are people free? We need to get together. Lunch. When you're supposed to be lunching. Um, and then just the invisible recovery, which is I think of what a lot of us do. We do know what we need to invest in our recovery. We just don't really talk about it. And especially if you're in a leadership role, to not talk about it is almost perpetuating, again, sort of shame or not psychological safety around what does it actually take to perform at that level. It requires rest, but we don't know that because we never see you and we never hear you talk about rest. Okay, so just some things to think about. And like I said, I'm really trying to eat my own dog food here in the sense that I know I need to do better, and nothing became more apparent for me than my youngest child, who's now in high school, but this was many years ago. He was in 5th grade. And I will never forget, it was like a Tuesday. And he wakes up and he goes, "Oh, Mom, I need a mental health day." I had never heard of that before. What? What do you mean? He goes, I'm tired. I don't think I can pay attention in school today. I think I just need to rest. And I was like, oh, that's what Saturday's for. Get up, get to school. I couldn't believe it. I was like, they'll try to do anything to get out of school. But no, he actually probably needed a mental health day. And I shut it down because of old habits. Grind, hustle, get through, do what you need to do. No rest, no recovery. Wait until the weekend. So I'm really guilty of it as well. I'm trying to do better. So here are my suggestions when I work with leaders, especially if you want to minimize the expense related to burnout, you are in the great position to help to normalize recovery as essential for work, not the reward for doing hard work, essential for work. So here's just some ideas to think about. So idea number one is actually model visible recovery. Let people know that you are taking vacation. Check in with how people are doing to normalize. We're humans at work. How are you feeling? It's no longer weird to do these emotional mental check-ins. Um, don't make your own recovery invisible so we don't know what it takes to be operating at a high level. Um, normalize boundary conversations. A lot of times when we think about all the work that gets to be done and how we prioritize, we talk about the work that needs to be done. What about the reverse question? What is it okay to not get done? Do we ever ask that question? Um, make it clear and visible that we do need to honor and jointly agree upon boundaries. And another category of ideas is reward sustainable efforts. I'm really a big one on this one. I really think leadership today, it requires people to drive for results while also creating the environment for people to thrive. It must be about sustainable results, not about results by any means necessary. Leaders have to be accountable for, let's just say example, sales and some type of well-being metric. And you're not a good leader. You're probably a toxic rock star if you're hitting your sales numbers and your engagement is low, your absenteeism is high, your turnover is high. People say that they're burned out. That's not good enough. We pay you way too much money to not be able to do both. So I think we just have to actually, put metrics and incentivize around normalizing rest and recovery as necessary for work. Okay. What else do I want to say? So normally when I end, what am I doing on time? When I end my talks, I always like to inspire people to take action with what you heard. I call it a call to action, and I wanted to give you a call to action, but even that word call to action didn't sound in alignment with what I'm advocating here, because it's do one more thing. So I decided to switch it. It's going to be more of a call to permission, but I do have an assignment for you. And that assignment is, as you go forth the day, engage in your own rest and recovery without shame, without guilt, without thinking about what you could be doing with what you should be doing. You're here. And maybe you don't even have Wi-Fi. I don't know, because we're in the woods. But be very present. And I want you to really notice, out of all the things that you get to sample today, which ones really resonated with you in order to really invest in your own rest and recovery. And I want you to remember that, because when you go back to work, I want you to share that and talk about it. I want to make it visible to other people. You invested in your rest and recovery today, and here's the benefit that you gain from it and how your work is going to benefit as well. That is really the only way I think that we're finally going to turn the corner. We have the investment in wellness, resources, which is great. But when we don't use them, it's almost like you have a first aid kit locked behind a door. What good does that do? Right? We need to normalize leveraging and utilizing the resources that we each need when we need them. And the only way that we're going to do that, especially if those of you, and we're all leaders, right? People look to see what you're doing. You can start, right? You can start with your own storytelling, with making rest and recovery essential for work as something visible that other people can see, because that's going to inspire and motivate other people to do the same. And eventually it sort of catches fire. So culture really does change with one visible act at a time. So that's my call to permission for all of you. Now, to keep it practical, if you took away some nuggets from what I said and you want an easy tool to take back to work with you to share with your teammates, you can scan this QR code and you can download a very simple guide that I have that basically summarizes all the stuff that I talked about. So some of those unintended behaviors that continue to normalize and prioritize hustle, and then some better ideas that you can do to start to normalize and prioritize rest and recovery. But I want to finish with one more thing, and this is like real. So to take you back to my healthcare conference yesterday, went to the room. I was in doom spiral, talked to my parents, did a little bit of historical research, shared with you, felt a little bit better, but more from an academic level, intellectual level. I still wasn't like feeling positive. And so I was like, whatever, have to leave. So I fitting my suitcase to head to the airport. And you know how you do that scan around the room? Did I leave anything? My toothbrush? Scanned the room. And I saw this. I couldn't believe it. I saw this on the desk at the Westin Hotel. This. I brought it with me. This. And it literally says, enhance your well-being. It was giving me permission. And I opened it up and it says, at Westin, every aspect of your stay is designed to ensure that you leave feeling better than when you arrived. What? Imagine if that was our mission, our motto at work. We spend so much time at work. What if we said, what can we do when we're at work? We leave here feeling more refueled and positively filled up than depleted, right? From our innovative programs to our revitalizing amenities, everything we do is to empower a better you. Now, okay, the skeptical of me is they're like, stay longer. Okay. But okay, I get where they're going, right? You know, use the spa. But they do have some things here that don't cost me money. They're telling me to sleep in. Well, okay, maybe I will. They're telling me to stay healthy, stay nourished. And anyways, whatever. As flawed as this is the next phase. This is normalizing rest and recovery in the way that the Westin Hotel knows how. Thank you. I think I shall. I took the brochure, and honest to God, this is how I can actually stand here in front of y'all. I kid you not. Like, this is the last thing I grabbed before I left the hotel. I went into that conference just depleted, and I left feeling good about our journey for well becoming. And I think this last little step of just prioritizing rest and recovery as essential for work by talking about it, making it visual, storytelling around it in simple ways, I actually think it is going to be the thing that actually gets us the better. Yeah, that's what I have for all of you. So I wish you um, a wonderful rest of the day and engaging in all these activities without shame, without guilt, and to be sure to share with whoever you meet what you did and why and how you're better for it. So thank you. Thank you.